Hello everyone, welcome to Election Future. The 2024 election is now just 2 weeks away, and we're entering the final stretch. With time running out, Kamala Harris's polling numbers continue to plummet, while Trump is surging in nearly every recent survey. Today, I'll be updating my 2024 electoral map prediction, and I'll fill in the map based on poll closing times to simulate how the map will actually color in red and blue on November 5th. We'll begin at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, when voting will end in 6 states. These are the first 6 races that will be called, and collectively, they make up a total of 60 electoral votes. Even after this, we still have a long way to go. I'll start by filling in the solid states for both candidates. Donald Trump will easily win Indiana, Kentucky, and South Carolina. These are all solid red states from the last 2 elections. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris is expected to carry Vermont, the most liberal state in the country. Virginia and Georgia, however, will be more competitive. Based on the 2020 results, you might be surprised to hear this. Virginia actually voted for Joe Biden by a whopping double-digit margin in the last election, the largest margin for any Democrat in nearly 4 decades. However, today, Kamala Harris is on track to win the state by 4 points according to polls. If you consider that polls often overestimate Democratic support, she's probably going to win by just 2. Virginia is more competitive than it has been in any election going back to 2004. Republicans have a real shot, but as of now, Kamala Harris still holds a slight advantage. On our map, Virginia is going to be labeled as a lean Democrat state. Trump, on the other hand, is on track to win Georgia, another state Biden carried in the last election. It was actually the closest state on the map. Biden won it by less than 1/4 of a percentage point. Today, however, Trump leads in Georgia polls by 1.8%, making him the clear favorite. Polling in Georgia tends to slightly overestimate Democratic support, but is still relatively accurate compared to other battleground states. Given past voting trends and current polling, Trump is likely to carry Georgia by about 3 to 4 points. Georgia is actually a state Trump won by 5 points back in 2016. After the first poll closings of the night, Donald Trump will have 44 electoral votes, taking an early lead, while Kamala Harris will trail with just 16. At 7:30 p.m., voting will close in Ohio, West Virginia, and North Carolina. Together, these states account for 37 of the Electoral College's 538 votes. We'll begin with West Virginia, where Trump will easily win. In Ohio, he leads by about 10 points in the polls, having won the state by 8% in both of the last 2 elections. He first flipped Ohio in 2016 and then carried it by the same margin against Joe Biden in 2020. There's no doubt Trump will carry the Buckeye state for a 3rd time. It will be labeled as likely Republican, with Trump expected to win by at least a double-digit margin. In North Carolina, which is the second of the 7 battleground states, Trump also holds a lead in the polling average, ahead by 0.5%. However, polls in North Carolina have historically underestimated Trump's support. He's likely to win it by a similar margin as Georgia, around 3 to 4 points. In fact, North Carolina is the only swing state that voted for Trump in both 2016 and 2020. Republicans are probably going to lose the governorship in the Tar Heel state with Mark Robinson as their nominee, but it won't affect Trump too much on the presidential level. He is practically a shoo-in in North Carolina and is expected to win the race by a lean margin. At 8:09 p.m. Eastern Time, we'll see the largest poll closing of the night, with voting ending in 16 states as well as the District of Columbia. Together, they make up 171 Electoral College votes. This is going to be a consequential moment for both campaigns, as voting will close in the Keystone State of Pennsylvania. We also have important races in Florida, New Hampshire, and Maine. I'll start by filling in the safe states first. Trump is easily going to win Oregon, Missouri, Tennessee, Mississippi, and Alabama. He's going to dominate down south, while Kamala Harris will carry Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maryland, and the District of Columbia by safe margins. Illinois, New Jersey, and Delaware are also going to lean Harris, but with slimmer margins of 7 to 15 points. Before we continue, nearly 70% of you aren't subscribed, so please take a moment to subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November, and join my Discord server to chat with me personally. Link is in the description below. Now, we'll continue in the Northeast with New Hampshire and Maine, 2 races where Kamala Harris is slightly favored. Joe Biden won both of these states by likely margins of 7 points or more back in 2020. Obviously, Kamala Harris is no Joe Biden. Biden was a strong nominee 4 years ago, and although he would have been a disaster this time around, in 2020 he was the best candidate the Democratic Party could have put forward. In 2024, though, Kamala Harris is far from the best. She's only the nominee because Joe Biden dropped out of the race so late. She never would have been able to win a primary nomination in her own right. So, as we move up in the Northeast, both New Hampshire and Maine are going to lean blue. Democrats are still favored here, but Harris is going to significantly underperform compared to Biden's numbers from 4 years ago. In the 1st District of Maine, the vice president will carry it by a safe margin, while the 2nd District will likely go to Trump. Down in Florida, the state is now a relic of what it once was. It used to be one of the top battlegrounds on the map, but today it is one of the most conservative states in the country. Governor Ron DeSantis won his re-election by a whopping 19 points. The presidential race will be closer, but Trump is still expected to win it by 7 points or more. Just look at 2016 against Hillary Clinton. Nobody thought Trump could win Florida, but he carried it by 1.2%. In 2020, people doubted him again and thought Biden would flip the state, but Trump expanded his margin from the previous election. This time, he's likely to double his performance, winning Florida by just over 7%. It will be labeled as likely red on this map. Finally, in Pennsylvania, we're looking at another solid victory for Donald Trump. Although he lost the state in the last election by just over 1%, he was the first Republican to win Pennsylvania since 1988. When Trump carried Pennsylvania back in 2016, it was a historic victory for the GOP. In fact, if you compare the map from 2012 to 2016, when Obama won his 2nd term, the Midwest was almost entirely blue. 4 years later, Trump transformed the region, and it is now dominated by Republicans, especially in state legislatures. Looking at Pennsylvania polling today, Trump leads by 0.8%. There's no doubt he is on track to win. It will be a strong performance from the former president, winning a state he first carried 8 years ago. The national popular vote is another indicator of Trump's dominance in the swing states. He actually leads in 4 of the last 5 national polls, something that's never happened before. In 2016, Clinton led by 6.4 points. In 2020, Biden led by 8.6 points. Today, Kamala Harris leads by just 0.9 points, and her lead shrinks every single day. On our map, Pennsylvania is going to lean towards Trump. He's expected to win by just over 2 points, which likely will be enough to get him over the finish line when all the other states are counted. But he's performing so well that there are other prizes on top of that. We have 4 remaining swing states where Trump is also doing exceptionally well. Voting will close in Arkansas, where Trump will obviously win, putting him at 180 electoral votes. Kamala Harris will still not even be at 100. Next up, another big poll closing will occur, with voting ending in states as far east as New York and as far west as Arizona. Together, they account for 163 electoral college votes. We'll start with the solid red states. Trump will easily win Wyoming, North and South Dakota, all of Nebraska except its 2nd district, as well as Kansas and Louisiana. The remaining states, however, will be significantly more competitive. New York has been a solid blue state in every election since 1992. But today, Kamala Harris is on track to win it by just around 13 points. This is going to be a disastrous performance for Democrats, considering Joe Biden carried the Empire State by 23 points in the last election. We also want to address Iowa, where Trump is clearly going to win. He'll carry it by just under 10 points, another dominant performance in the lower Midwest, similar to his margin in Ohio, in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Harris needs to win all 3 states. I still have her winning Minnesota by just over 2 points. She chose Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, as her running mate, but he hasn't helped her campaign much. She's leading by 4 points in the polls, but even Joe Biden won Minnesota by 7 points in the last election. Walz isn't having the impact Kamala Harris hoped for, and she is losing in all the other Midwestern races. Her campaign will crumble if she can't win Wisconsin and Michigan. Joe Biden carried Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, but Kamala Harris has already lost Pennsylvania and isn't looking too good in Wisconsin or Michigan either. We'll begin in Wisconsin, where Trump leads by 0.2% in the polling average. It's a very close margin, and while Tim Walz may have helped Harris somewhat in the state, Wisconsin is a place where Trump has consistently outperformed expectations. In 2020, he was expected to lose by 8 points to Joe Biden, but he only lost by 0.6%. In 2016, he was supposed to lose by 5 points, but he actually won the state. Wisconsin always surprises the country with how well Trump performs, and 2024 will probably be no exception. I predict he will win the state by a lean margin, around 3 points. Meanwhile, Michigan is another key state, and it's probably the most difficult swing state for Trump to win, as it was the most liberal battleground in 2020. Joe Biden won Michigan by 2.8%, No other swing state had a lean margin, except for Nevada, which Biden won by 2.4%. All the other swing states were decided by 2 percentage points or less. If Trump can win Michigan, there's no doubt he will win almost all the other battlegrounds. Trump did win Michigan in the past, carrying it by 0.2% in 2016, making it the closest state in the entire country. Today, Trump leads by 1.2% in the polling, and I expect the polls are once again underestimating his support, as they have in Wisconsin. However, since Michigan is the most liberal of the battlegrounds, I predict Trump will win it by just under 2 points. He'll perform well, win the state, and that's really what matters. It would be a huge symbolic victory for Republicans if they could sweep all 7 battlegrounds, but it's going to be close. Trump will win Michigan by a tilt margin. Moving down to the Sun Belt, we'll start with Colorado and New Mexico, 2 states Biden won by well over double-digit margins 4 years ago. Today, however, Harris is projected to win Colorado by just over 7 points and New Mexico by just under 7. In Texas, Trump will perform much better than he did last time. He won Texas by 5 points against Joe Biden and by 9 against Hillary Clinton in 2016. This time around, he's likely to win the Lone Star State by a double-digit margin. Polls show him leading by 8 to 10 points. And, of course, polls always underestimate Trump. Texas won't flip blue anytime soon, and it will be likely Republican on the map. In Arizona, the 6th of the 7 swing states we're covering, Trump has also taken a sizable lead, up by 1.6%. Arizona was a state Biden won in the last election by just 0.3%. Kamala Harris simply won't be able to replicate that success. Trump will likely win Arizona by around 3% in less than 2 weeks, putting it back in the Republican column. Trump won Arizona by nearly 4 points back in 2016, so Arizona is also leaning Republican on the map. At this point, Trump will be 6 for 6 in the swing states we've filled in so far. Nebraska's 2nd district is still left, and it's going to go to Kamala Harris, though it will be close. It will likely be lean blue once all the votes are counted. Voting will end in Montana, Utah, and Nevada. Montana and Utah will be solid for Trump, but Nevada is the most elusive battleground state, having not gone red since George W. Bush carried it in 2004. A Trump victory in Nevada would be significant, making him the first Republican to win the state in 20 years. Polling suggests he will, as he leads by 0.8%, and, as usual, polls tend to underestimate his support. If Trump can win Nevada and sweep all the battlegrounds, it would be a modern-day landslide for the former president. Right now, Trump is on track to win Nevada, though given its long Democratic history, I'll place it in the tilt Republican column alongside Michigan. 2 states where I believe he'll come out on top, but with smaller margins than in the other 5 swing states. 1 hour before midnight, at 11 o'clock p.m., voting will end across the Pacific Coast. Harris is expected to win Washington and California by solid margins, while Oregon will be slightly more competitive. Trump will easily carry Idaho. At midnight on November 6th, Kamala Harris will win Hawaii, and an hour later, at 1 o'clock a.m., Trump will carry Alaska. So, this is my updated 2024 electoral map prediction. Donald Trump with 312 electoral votes and Kamala Harris with 226. Trump will sweep all 7 swing states, resulting in a modern-day landslide for the Republican nominee. As Kamala Harris's campaign continues to crumble, with just 2 weeks to go until the election. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this leading up to the election in November.